I never told anyone this, but the only reason I signed on to do The Odyssey was because I thought it was a movie about a Honda minivan.
Matt Damon has the face of a man who has just said something completely reasonable, even when the story has already flown off the rails. That is why his anecdotes are dangerous in the most pleasant way. They start normally, and a few seconds later, a detail appears that nobody could have predicted. With The Odyssey making audiences curious about his new epic adventure, Matt is once again proving that his real life can sometimes be more winding than Odysseus himself. Hit like, subscribe, and let's see just how strange things can get. Some people experience something terrifying and scream. Matt usually stands still, remembers every ounce of his own helplessness, then years later tells the story in a voice as calm as if he were talking about the weather. He does not protect the image of a hero. He keeps the most awkward part intact, because that is where the story begins to have a soul.
Walked out, and it was one of those, I went full lizard brain, and I realized, oh my God.
You mean you just froze?
I completely froze. It was like I couldn't physically move. It was crazy.
Right.
And sometimes you do not need a film set or special effects. One soccer match in Argentina is enough to push him into a world with its own rules. Matt walks in like an ordinary tourist, then realizes he has bought a ticket to something closer to a survival ritual. His confused expression immediately puts the audience on his side.
Could we go to the game?
Yeah.
And her uncle looked at me and said in Spanish, he got very serious, and then he said, "No women, no children." And I was like, what? Okay. And then I realized when I got there, you had to go through 3 lines of riot police.
What makes it interesting is that Matt never tells it like, look how wild my life is. He tells it like someone who still does not understand why everyone around him was so calm that day. That feeling turns the story from a celebrity adventure into a very memorable social accident.
This is true. The dude's name is Chad. And Chad goes, look, at a certain point, you have to have this conversation with...
Even at home, Matt's life refuses to be normal. A trip to the veterinarian can become a story about a neurologist, an awkward conversation with his kids, and a supporting character with a presence far too perfect for a sitcom. He always catches the smallest detail that can make an entire memory light up.
Was it real?
It was hair extensions.
Oh, it wasn't real? Oh,
no, there were 700 hair extensions. It was a full day to put them in. They flew a wonderful woman from here, all the way to Beijing to do it, and we did it on a Sunday. It took us the entire day.
Matt's honesty is not glamorous at all. He is willing to peel the mystery away from the movie star image and reveal the hours of waiting and the steps that sound more like a construction project than beauty work. To him, Hollywood magic is often just a group of patient people doing something confusing all day long.
Also, I heard Robert Pattinson tell a story about how you were sort of screaming to try to grizzle your voice up. Is that accurate?
Right, for the third act, yeah.
Yeah.
For the older version.
Just kind of, to age it out. And he did not realize that's what you're doing. And so he was a trailer over,
That becomes even clearer on The Odyssey, where his preparation for the role accidentally made Robert Pattinson worry in the trailer next door. Matt does not try to make himself mysterious. He pulls the curtain aside and shows that behind an epic sound, sometimes there is only a neighbor making very alarming noises.
It was actually a real impetus behind us writing Good Will Hunting, because when Ben and I went out for that role, and Edward beat out everybody, and as he should have, he was phenomenal in the movie. Ben and I looked at each other and we were like, there's never gonna be a role that good.
Maybe the habit of turning failure into storytelling material started very early. When a great role went to someone else, Matt and Ben Affleck realized that waiting for Hollywood to hand them an opportunity was a pretty terrible strategy. He tells that turning point not like a myth, but like 2 friends who had just been backed into a corner.
I had to kiss Scarlett Johansson.
I mean, come on.
Can you imagine how horrible that was for me?
Can you imagine how awful that was?
What?
It's such a shame she has such terrible lips and everything. It must have been so awful.
From the days when they had to write roles for themselves, Matt eventually reached the point where he was being paid for scenes most men would not consider hardship. But he still tells it with solemn pain, keeping a straight face longer than necessary. The more serious he becomes, the more the whole studio understands that he is enjoying every second.
Or Jimmy would say he's been nice enough to give me a room where I come and I wait every night.
So for a decade you've been waiting. Have you ever considered not coming anymore?
Nowhere uses that kind of comedy better than his war with Jimmy Kimmel. Matt turns a green room into a Shakespearean tragedy of late-night television, then nurtures that anger for years. Everyone knows it is a bit, but he commits as if the honor of his family has truly been insulted.
Well, it was the hardest movie, definitely, that I've ever done. It felt in a lot of ways more like an expedition than a movie because of the locations we were at. You know, we'd be shooting on top of a mountain. We'd have to hike up the mountain to shoot. And that part of it ended up being really fun because it was challenging for everybody there.
Outside the talk show, the challenge is much bigger. Matt calls The Odyssey the hardest movie he has ever made, with shooting days that felt more like an expedition than a film job. And yet he does not complain. In Matt's memory, exhaustion usually comes with the feeling that the entire crew is surviving something impossible together.
You must be really bummed out.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed.
Back with Jimmy, Matt shows that he can use compassion like a weapon. He puts on just enough concern to make the insult look polite, then stands there enjoying the discomfort. Matt is especially good at stretching a moment after it should have ended, like a guest who somehow does not notice the host staring at the clock.
And I said, what do you mean? And they were like, they give the other people a head start.
In Argentina, that same feeling returns in a much more real way. After the match, Matt discovers that the crowd is not staying in the stadium out of politeness, but because of a security process that sounds like the rules of a survival show. His stories often feel like a staircase with one step missing. You walk forward with confidence, then suddenly lose your footing on the final detail.
Yeah, and they are just so much bigger than you think.
Why? Are you overawed by the beauty of them, or are you just like, please get me out of this cage?
Like completely in awe of how beautiful they are.
Even when facing sharks, Matt does not pretend to be immortal. He lets fascination and fear exist at the same time, which keeps even a huge experience grounded in a very human point of view. This is Matt at his most likable, curious, a little shaken, but still looking straight at the thing that could swallow him.
Yeah, we did.
No, I thought it was supposed to be private.
There was a camera crew in the room. How private did you think it was? Show the tape, because I want people to see this.
So, how are you feeling about today?
I feel anxious and I feel nervous, but I also feel, I guess, hopeful.
That vulnerability disappears fairly quickly when Jimmy shows up. Matt once used Ben Affleck himself as a way to infiltrate the set, a childish plan carried out with impressive determination. In his world, long friendship is not just a shelter, sometimes it is also a secret transportation system.
This is a waste of my talents.
Stuntmen are expensive. James looks like he can take a punch. I mean, I can't be the first time he's been punched in the face. He's got an extremely punchable face.
When he moves over to James Corden, Matt finds another victim for that fake calm kind of power. He turns cruelty into a purely professional decision, speaking in the voice of someone leading a safety meeting. Matt understands the power of not laughing at his own joke.
You have a movie called Stupido, and been an arrow pointed towards me.
Yes, Martin.
With Guillermo, that calm begins to crack little by little. The interview is surrounded by posters full of childish insults, while Matt tries to preserve his dignity like someone negotiating at an international summit. He works best in comedy when his character believes this is absolutely not comedy.
I jumped off a bridge once in Berlin. You know, it was a night shoot, and it was in the Bourne movie where I jump off the bridge onto a boat in the second one. And there's no rehearsing it. You know, you have the harness, you trust the guys, and it's just like so, and they're like, yeah, grab the rail right there and just send it.
But sometimes, Matt really does have to place his trust in someone else, like during a nighttime bridge jump in Berlin. He does not overstate the bravery. What he remembers most is the relief of not having to do it again. Behind all the glamour, success is sometimes simply being allowed to walk away in one piece.
And I'm like, and he goes, so I get another safety guy.
Tom Cruise clearly has a different definition of limits. When Matt hears that a safety expert said no, he assumes the story is about to move toward a more cautious plan, but Tom's logic only requires finding someone willing to give a more convenient answer. Matt does not judge. He simply realizes he has encountered an entirely different operating system.
Yeah.
They're actual actors buried in the ground with straws to breathe?
Yeah, they were buried. They had snorkels. They were stunt people, and when we did that shot, I don't want to give too much away.
I know.
It's really cool, but
The Odyssey continues to put him in situations that sound like exaggerated bar stories, except they actually appear on screen. Soldiers emerging from the ground were created through a practical solution so alarming it almost feels illegal. For Christopher Nolan, difficult to execute does not seem to count as a valid reason.
Another challenge, this is the first feature film ever shot entirely with IMAX cameras, which are so big that mirrors had to be used so actors could see each other around the bulky equipment.
Then there is the IMAX camera, so large that even normal acting has to change around it. When the equipment stands between two actors like a car parked in the wrong place, the crew has to come up with a solution that feels both modern and ancient. Matt especially enjoys details like that, grand from far away, awkward up close.
If you're gonna do a double cheeseburger, why not get the special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun?
Even choosing fast food sends Matt into serious analysis mode. He treats a burger like a design problem that needs to be optimized, reviewing every ingredient with the conviction of an engineer. The humor comes from the fact that he invests far too much logic into something far too small, and he has absolutely no intention of apologizing for it.
Get up and just give each other,
You mean like hug each other?
yeah, like a hug.
The therapy session with Jimmy eventually forces the two of them toward a gesture of reconciliation. But after years of building a brand on hatred, even a hug feels like a dangerous mission. Matt steps into it like a man being asked to sign a treaty with ink he does not trust.
I never know where to look when the credit card machine is reading my chip, so I usually just pretend to be asleep for 2 to 3 minutes.
After mountains, sharks, and bridge jumps, Matt's everyday anxiety is surprisingly simple: a few seconds of silence at the checkout counter. The confessions in the game are clearly fictional, but they work because they are built on something very Matt Damon, an overreaction presented with absolute sincerity.
Yeah.
Now he's jacked.
Now he's jacked, and I joked that he's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's like, good morning. He's like got muscles on muscles, you know what I mean? He looks great. He looks great. So that was my cat story, sorry.
The family cat then returns as the lead character in a sequel nobody could have predicted. The story changes genres halfway through, from family drama to four-legged action movie. That is why Matt's stories become harder to believe the longer they go on. Every new detail opens an even stranger door.
Business lunches, yeah, we called them business lunches.
And you were like 14.
Yes, I was 16 and he was 14, and there were two cafeterias. We went to a very big high school. There were 3,000 kids, and there was the main cafeteria and then what they called the media cafeteria, which was a small.
Before the big career arrived, Matt and Ben turned school lunches into imaginary business meetings. Two students with no money, no power, and no office were already speaking the language of people who believed they were building something. That innocence is both funny and genuinely touching.
I once shot in the world's second largest dump.
Oh, wow.
In Mexico, and that was, you literally had to throw your shoes out when you left.
No
because it was
way.
So
What were you doing
toxic.
there?
A movie called Elysium with Neil
Oh,
Blanc.
right, of course, yeah.
And we shot for a couple weeks there, and it was just the smell was just so overwhelming. That's the worst place I've ever encountered.
Then Hollywood gave Matt the chance to work in places that made the school cafeteria sound like paradise. On Elysium, he filmed in a massive garbage dump where the smell clung to everything so badly that the shoes had no way back. He does not need fancy adjectives. One specific detail is enough to make the audience almost smell the story.
Was that Chris told you to do that? Put your hand on your heart, and he goes, my costume was choking me. So it's like I was...
You're doing this back to him like...
And no, from where I was standing, I'm nearsighted. I thought he was like saluting me. That it was like a father-son moment.
On The Odyssey, a gesture caused by an uncomfortable costume is interpreted by Matt as a tender father-son moment. He even responds with full sincerity before realizing the ritual never existed. This is Matt in his purest form, sincere enough to invent a story by accident, then honest enough to admit he misunderstood.
Chris Nolan. Robert Pattinson says, you know, most time the camp is maybe 5 minutes away. For Chris Nolan, it was 45 minutes away, and you had to walk in flip-flops and sandals to get there.
What do you have to say to people to say?
Even the road to Nolan's set comes with its own trial. While other productions set up camp only minutes from the location, the Odyssey crew has to walk a long way across terrain that is not exactly friendly. Matt tells it with almost cheerful acceptance because he understands that today's inconvenience will become tomorrow's excellent anecdote.
Oh, hey, Jimmy. Tell your mom I like them apples.
When he returns to face Jimmy, Matt always knows how to end the scene with an insult as clean as a car door closing. He borrows his own most famous legacy as a weapon, proving that the past is always ready to serve the joke. That self-mockery keeps him from ever getting trapped inside the image of a serious movie star.
Career move you almost made.
I almost took a movie early on in my career. I think it would have precluded me from doing, like, The Rainmaker.
Oh,
Which
wow.
was
Which
the
then
reason
got you
that
into
Good Will Hunting got greenlit,
Right.
which was the reason I got Saving Private Ryan.
Whoa. That would have been like a canon event.
Maybe the most unbelievable story is not the sharks, the garbage dump, or the people buried underground. It is the fact that one small choice in youth can change the entire road behind it. Matt looks back at those turns not with triumph, but with amazement at the way life stitches together such fragile opportunities. Matt Damon is compelling not because he tries to be the funniest person in the room. He simply tells everything with a sincerity that is almost dangerous, keeping the fear, confusion, awkwardness, and seemingly ridiculous decisions intact. Thanks to that calm face, a soccer match can become a survival film, a shooting day can become an expedition, and a cat can walk straight into an action movie. The longer you listen, the more it feels like Matt's life has already written dozens of scripts Hollywood has not had time to buy yet. Comment with your favorite moment, hit like and subscribe so you do not miss the next unbelievable stories.